First, like, are most of the planets below the horizon or above the horizon? So are they above the ascendant or below the ascendant? Are they primarily on the eastern or western hemisphere? So this is the division by with kind of the left to the right side of the chart. Are they gathered in a corner, or are they spread across different houses? And that's going to say a lot. I mean, we'll see a couple examples there. Is there a particularly strong elemental or modality emphasis? So this is a question about signs. Those of you who know more about signs, we always describe them based on their element, whether they're fire, water, air, and modality, whether they're cardinal signs, fixed signs. So sometimes you look at a chart and it's just kind of like, ooh, that's a lot of fixed planets. And here I'm usually focusing just on the signs of those 5 inner planets, right? Are those mostly fixed sign planets? Are they mostly cardinal sign planets? That's going to tell you a lot about how that person experiences themselves. And then, are there any outlier planets? And this comes up in different ways, but it's kind of like, usually, I always say, if your eye is being drawn to one part of the chart a lot, there's a reason for it. That planet is playing an important role. And so this is something that you really get better at getting a feel for a chart, the more variety of charts you look at. Sometimes we get too stuck looking at only our chart and we don't realize how much they can really. So one quick and easy way to start dividing the charts is to focus on the different hemispheres and quadrants of the chart. So, and this is what we're saying, you can find that sometimes some charts are much more concentrated than others. Now, I don't have time to get into all the hemispheres and quadrants in detail here, but they do all kind of have general meanings. But I do want to give you a few examples of charts just so you can start to get a feel for how different charts have these different vibes, if you will. Okay, so let's start thinking about this north-south division, for example. The top part of the chart, which is actually the southern hemisphere, is the more public side of the chart. Makes sense, right? This shows the planets that were above the horizon when you were born, right? So they're up there, they're being seen, right? When you see a chart with all its planets up top, this generally indicates a more extroverted personality, or one that looks to the external world for recognition. So they're more ready to be seen. And sometimes, and again, your sign is going to make a difference, right? Because you can have some signs that are naturally a little bit more timid or less confident or things like that. But the fact that they're up there, they're going to find themselves being put in situations in life where they are more seen, like it or not. And so that can be quite interesting if you have planets that are much more timid or don't like the spotlight, but they're up there anyway. The person will have to find a way to contend with that. And also, the person usually is looking for that external recognition from the world, whether they like that about themselves or not. They're just more ready to be seen. And meanwhile, a chart that has all its planets spread across the bottom of the chart, that shows a personality that seeks privacy and personal fulfillment more rather than that external validation. And this is, so here's Barbra Streisand's chart. I was just trying to, for some reason, I was like, who's a celebrity that I know is private? And I thought Barbra Streisand, I put in her chart information, I looked up her chart information, and voila. I mean, she has almost all of her planets at the bottom of the chart, right? And then the one that she does have up there is in the 12th house, which is not the most vocal of the top houses. So, and this is important to realize also that just, she's obviously, this is a singer. Well, I'm in the American call. You guys all know who Barbra Streisand is. So, she's a famous person, right? So just because the person doesn't have planets in the 10th house, for example, obviously doesn't mean that the person won't receive any public recognition. That's important to note. This is talking to us more about her perception and her personality, right? It simply means, so from her perspective, her source of gratification and personal orientation is going to be more towards the private sphere, which is why she probably isn't as comfortable in the with people prying into her life, and she doesn't want to share things as much. So makes sense. And sometimes you'll find a chart that has no single area of concentration. That's not uncommon. So a lot of you might have charts like that. This is actually my chart. It's a kind of classic splash chart. And when we see a chart like this, where it's kind of like, oh, look, it's all over the place. Well, what does it look like? It looks like someone who's quite well-rounded. It's someone who can look at the world a lot, who tends to look at the world a lot through lots of different angles, from different angles, right? From different perspectives. So that's kind of the splash chart style. And sometimes you'll find that you have a single planet that kind of stands out, right? This is a great example of a chart that has a strong outlier planet, right? We've got Jupiter sitting right down here opposite all the other planets. And when you see a chart like this, right, you really know that you want to pay attention to that Jupiter, right? And this is someone whose life has been strongly defined by her Jupiter, by her belief systems, and specifically a Jupiter in Capricorn style. So that's kind of another type of example of a chart.